This is Katie Finch.
Hello.
Katie's been here before, quite a few times actually. She's the author, co-creator of Zenful Zero Waste, pioneer really. And we did an anxiety share together when we were in Gili Air in Indonesia. And Katie's come down to Devon. We're sitting at the Valley of the Rocks. And I'm obviously just inspired to share, and Katie's up for it. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, sure, why not?
This is fun. So what came through for sharing today was basically about how do we heal control patterns, which I sort of paraphrased as limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And you ultimately have been transforming your life for quite a few years consciously.
Yeah.
In leaving corporate work, dealing with anxiety and depression, using your yoga practice and business as a way to share that experience, but ultimately also keep up the work, which is what we all do essentially. Yeah. And over the last few days, we've been talking a lot about control patterns. So I'm kind of just curious, what's it like for you? What does it feel like for you transforming control patterns?
Well, my control patterns, historically, I've always thought have been really obvious. What we've been talking about over the last few days is the subtle control patterns. And when you start to notice the control patterns, you realise that when they come up, they literally limit your joy. It feels like when a control pattern comes up and you try to it's like you're squeezing something. So I always talk about, I think it's the movie Of Mice and Men. And there's the guy who just loves dogs so much and he squeezes it so hard that he kills it. That's how I feel like control patterns squeeze the joy out of life. You squeeze things so hard that you just kill all the fun.
Right. So in the moment, it's a limiting, super constricted feeling. And what kind of strategy and or inner mechanism do you utilize to start sifting and or transforming these patterns as and when they come up?
So a lot of the difficulty that I find is that when you're in a control pattern, you don't necessarily realise you are, because you think what you're doing by controlling said thing is that you're creating more joy. So it's confusing because you're like, no, but if it just went like this, I'd be happy, and you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. The thing that I'm finding at the moment most useful is the practice. It's meditating every day, having space from it. And then you start to be aware of, when you start to feel, and your body literally does it, you can feel the squeeze. You start to become aware of the squeeze when everything comes in. You can be like, hang on, something's happening here. And separate yourself from whatever the situation is, if it's with another person or with a thing, whatever it might be. Stepping back and being like, okay, what is that? And then you can start to drop into the feeling, because it's you think it's all the things well, if I just ate like this, or if this person just did this thing, then I would be okay. But it's not. It's always coming from somewhere deeper. And when you can get into the feeling of it, to be like, oh no, I'm just really scared of that. That's the bit that you want to get to, because so we've been talking about death.
I was gonna say, we had basically a major breakthrough this weekend, right?
Well, realising that my control patterns around other people, friends, partners, family, eating meat or dairy or smoking, drinking, doing drugs, or whatever it is, I don't want them to do it. And I really get really controlling, and I could never work out why. I was like, I don't like you drinking, I don't like this, I don't like that. And I was like, why does that bother me so much? We're not talking about someone who's getting pissed all the time. We're talking about one beer here and there. And I had the epiphany the other day, and I was like, oh shit, I'm just so scared that they're gonna die. And I have created this link between, if they eat this, this and this, do these unhealthy things, they're gonna die. So my control comes from a pure fear of losing people. And the irony is that the more you try and squeeze that person to act a certain way, you literally kill it.
Right.
And you do lose them. Yes, they may not die, but they cannot be in your life anymore, because you're literally squeezing the life out of them. You're making it restrictive for them. How can you be joyful in the whole time when you're like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that? But the feeling inside when you're controlling it is pure fear, terror.
Mm-hmm. And you've been meditating and doing yoga for a few years now. A few years now.
Disciplined for a few years. I kind of dabbled for years before that, but last few years has been
anchored it as a solid practice in your life. And then as you've been anchoring in that solid practice and navigating emotional transformation to really kind of like up level and go for it, kind of go for the life you want to live. And then more recently, just because of the stuff we share on this channel, it's like loads of us seem to be going through like major life change, and a lot of it just feels totally unknown, totally out of control, and a little bit like deeper than we ever could have imagined. But at the same time, there's these moments of clarity and these moments of perspective shifts, right? And even just realizing like, holy shit, and ultimately really what you're saying, like the fear of death, that ultimate like fear is kind of the root. It's like the fear that drives all control and domination patterning, because you disconnect from that eternal spark, right?
Yeah.
And so the practice ultimately is what kind of reminds us and brings us back to that eternal spark where we can see all those control patterns. And it just seems that we like have to act them out like to the point of total breakdown or surrender, right?
It's like you have to act them out until the point where you reach a breaking point where I can't live like this anymore, because you have a burnout, you get, anxiety, panic attacks go hand in hand with a lot of control patterns in my experience, and you eventually reach a point where you're like, I can't live like this anymore. And then you either find yourself in a breakup situation or a fallout situation, or like with such toxic patterns with whatever it is, food, alcohol, drugs, or lack of them. It can work both ways. And then you're suddenly like, fuck, something's got to change. And it's almost in that moment that you step back, you're like, oh, right. And you force yourself into having to take perspective, like having to step back from it and see it for what it actually is.
That we're creating it, basically. And that if we make some changes in our beliefs and like shift around and work with our emotions a little bit more like in the moment and in the here now, we can shapeshift our perspective, which then helps us and leads us to all the forgiveness and the love and compassion and really being able to contain ourselves, but ultimately really heal too, which is pretty powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's such a different feeling to controlling, which is like really dominant and quite edgy and aggressive, to being like, oh, I'm just like scared, and I can just like love that scared inner child who's like, I just don't want to lose anyone, I don't want anyone to die, or whatever
so
it is. And
lovely.
that's such a different loving way to treat yourself or other people around you than the whole like, must do this, must do that, and we don't always do it to other people, we can be doing it to ourselves, like, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, and then it's just like, oh no, it's okay, like, just chill, like, it's going to be alright, like, whatever it is, and be able to go deeper than what you think is the external thing, the food, the booze, whatever it is, it's that deeper feeling underneath.
So are you, after quite a few years of doing this conscious transformation work, are you feeling benefits from it?
Like, for sure. The interesting thing is that when shit goes down in your life, what you realise is that coming back to the practice of meditating and yoga, it feels like it's a way to get back to you. So like, whereas before, when shit goes down in your life, I don't know, you're kind of spiralling out, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? And you just move your problems like from one place to another. The being rooted in the practice now, every day I meditate, most days, I'll be very rare if I don't do yoga. If I don't do yoga in some way, I don't move my body, is a way for me to just slow down and just connect back to me and be like, yeah, but it's all right. Yeah, but I'm okay. A bit of stillness in amongst the chaos. It's like being in a storm, but being like, yeah, but I'm okay. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on around me. It gives you that sense of being supported. And you know, we get support from family and friends and things around us, but to actually support ourselves, that's the difference. And that's where the practice has been crucial for me, to be able to be like, yeah, but I'm okay. Like, it's great that I've got support around me, but I don't need, I'm not being like, will you help me? Will you help me? I can just be like, no, I'm okay. Like, feet are on the ground. Like, I'm supported, I support myself. And it's, it just helps. That period of like reflection obviously helps you see the things maybe that you're doing and the patterns you're playing out, but it also helps you just be like, okay, but it's all right.
Thank God, right?
Right.
Thank God. So thanks, Katie.
You're welcome.
Thanks guys for being here. It's a gorgeous day. I'm just gonna shine out onto the sunset for you for a little bit. Katie and I have some Indian zero waste takeaway.
Yeah.
We brought our own Tupperware and plastic bag for some vegan Indian food and chapati. And Katie's on her way back home tomorrow.
Back to sunny Brighton.
Yeah, after tearing down the constructs of limitation.
After falling apart dramatically in the best place possible.
Yeah, for sure. I fell apart this morning. It's all good. I mean, I fell apart most days. It's absolutely fine.
And there's a reason why I'm here.
Yeah, for sure.
We would expect no less when we're together.
Yeah, exactly.